All right, welcome everyone to another edition of the Subseasonal Forecast Contest. My name is David Margolin. It is, let's see, today's January 22nd. We're doing this on a Friday. So our most recent forecast was from Tuesday, January 19th, and that was for early February. You can see it on the screen. Um, but before we do that, we'll start off with our attribution and anything else you guys. I know just before I hit the record button, we were talking about maybe talking about the recent stratospheric warming and talking about the impacts on the pattern. Maybe talking about that a little bit. Anything else that you guys want to hit or cover in today's discussion?
Not that I can think of, but if I think of something, I'll let you know.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. All right. So let's go and start with the looking back at the most recent verification. So yeah, I just mentioned this offline that this is still during the holiday week where we took a 2 week hiatus. So no well, actually, that's not true. It looks like there were one or two human forecasts that got in there, but most people did not participate in this week. So um, this was from December 29th. The target window was or is January 13th to the 17th. So the verification was 120 or 121 HDDs there on the bottom. And just to get our bearings, the 30-year normal is 150 or was 154 for this period. The 10-year normal was just about 153. You can see it up here. So certainly this was a forecast that verified well below the normals. So it was warmer than normal. And let's see what the EC and CFS had to were showing. And let me maybe I'll sort this by our performance metric. So I'm going to sort this right now. All right. So the ECMWF was at 138. So that was certainly better than the 30-year and the 10-year. It was certainly closer. The CFS was at 150. So even the CFS, I guess, if you went 100% on the CFS, you would have scored slightly better than just using the 30-year or 10-year normal. So that, you can see the CFS scored a couple points above the CRPS, just as a reminder, is benchmarked to the 30-year normal. So anything positive is better than the 30-year normal. Anything negative is worse. So the CFS was, a little bit better, and the ECMWF certainly scored better. And interestingly, some folks we have the persistence metrics here. It's kind of like the equivalent of how with the Hurricane Center forecast, I think they still provide like Clipper, climatology and persistence. It's sort of like the ultimate like low benchmark, I guess you could say. And interestingly, the persistence forecasts were actually some of the best, at least for this period. And Josh Herman, who actually I'm looking forward, we're going to have Josh Herman's he's a recent participant. He's got some interesting techniques. He's, I think, going to join us the week after next and share some of his, you can see here, reoccurring Rossby wave train analogs. He's got some interesting methods, so it'll be good to touch base with him. Let's look at, real quick, let's look at the map in terms of how the map looked. There we go. So yeah, you can see certainly, let me just make sure I got the 120. Yeah, that's it. You could see that other than, unless you lived in, unless you lived in Florida or something like that, you were basically warmer than normal. Or I guess down there where Greg lives, right?
Yeah, it's been cold, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Houston. So yeah, all those folks in International Falls had to, or Houston had to go up to International Falls to get away from the cold, I guess. What else? Oh, let's look at here. I'm just trying to knock out the.
I actually want to touch on something real quick here. I was looking at the NAO, the teleconnections, PNA, AO, and if you showed me a picture of those teleconnections that we have, currently or have had for the past, I guess couple of weeks, and you told me that would be the verification, that map, I would just call you a liar and say there's no way that that's possible. That with a negative NAO, AO, and heck, even the PNA was negative, I think, now too. And not even like flimsily negative. Like that's, I think that's like what, 2? That's a -2 negative. So it's like not an insignificant number, and to get that kind of a warm pattern where the only thing that's below average is basically the Gulf. I if anyone got that right, then good on them. But I don't think anyone in their right mind would expect that, looking off the teleconnections. I mean, maybe there were other things, but that's kind of, I guess that's my question, and I guess a topic of discussion. What exactly happened here that we were in, what, from a teleconnection standpoint, and I believe even an MJO standpoint, was such a favorable pattern, and yet the entire CONUS was basically above average.
Upstream, right there, you see what's going on in Alaska, off into the Northeast Pacific, off Alaska vicinity. That's a pretty big key right there. You don't hook it up, so to speak, with cold Arctic air masses, and don't even really have cold Arctic air masses in our friendly Canada vicinity, which is lackluster. And so we dug some decent troughs into the eastern US, but just really didn't hook up with any good cold air. And so voila, you got the United States were fairly warm there, with the exception of, yes, the I-10 corridor and the Sunshine State being cold.
That is a great, I think that's a great point. Let's talk about that a little bit. And again, it's really good to have a Greg here. I mean, Greg, I mean, is it if God, I'm trying to ask the right question. Maybe there's a couple questions here, but and maybe you even did this, but Greg, if I was going to run an analog analysis based off of, I don't even know, maybe we can even do it on this thing, but off this 500 millibar pattern, if I was going to run, an analog, and I don't know, the closest 10, 20 year events, whatever. I mean, do you think it would capture well the surface pattern, which was basically, unless you were in the I-10 corridor, you were above normal temperatures? Or do you think it would be fooled too? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, from that perspective, if you're asking like more of an automated system to capture the analogs, I would say it'd be somewhat fooled.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah.
Okay, now my second, but yeah, then the other question is, I mean, and you could say this from a Monday morning quarterback or the week before quarterback. So like, I don't know what you forecasted, right? But like, could you, if you knew that this was the forecast, what other things, I mean, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, the upstream, but would that be enough for you to say, you know what, like this is going to end up being, other than the I-10 corridor, this is going to end up being a really warm forecast for much of the country, and in particular in terms of national heating demand? Or would this more times than not fool you? What do you think?
Well, to put into context, this forecast was made on the 29th of December, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
So the 28th of December, Monday, I actually did work, and then I took the rest of the week off. And I was coming back in from the Christmas Eve and Christmas holiday weekend time frame, because that Friday we were technically off, the markets were off. So what ended up happening, it was a massive move in the models from that Friday previous, and that was mainly within the 11 to 15 day forecast, or excuse me, the 1 through 15 day forecast. But it was a shift to more noticeable troughiness on the modeling. And I got my notes from my model diagnostics that I did that particular day on the 28th, where most of them are starting to point towards a lot of troughiness showing up in the 11 to 15 day time frame, mind you. Okay, out across the Alaska vicinity and breaching into Western Canada. And they had the massive signature of high heights all over central eastern Canada, Greenland, and whatnot. and have that troughiness there. But I think there was some realization, especially on Monday the 28th, that, oh crap, we're not going to have that much cold air involved in the Canada vicinity. And so it'd be a bit of a grind to, at least extrapolate into the 16 to 30 day. That it was going to get, to the cool side. And I pulled up the CFS, and just looking at itself, let me go and pull that up again here.
I'll pull that up
from December 29th, and looking at its 500 millibar pattern, it had the signature of the trough there, but it was pretty robust to the warm side, at least on the 29th, from what I could see in the 16 to 20 day time frame, and even the 16 to 30 day graphic that was available on the 29th of December, just showed just lack of cold air in Canada, period. And it was catching pretty good in terms of geographical coverage of above normals everywhere. So that was a kudos to the CFS there. Let me see. I think we could pull up the good old long range GFS ensemble for fun.
Here's this, Greg, on the screen. This is the.
No, I can't get that far back. Mm-hmm.
This is the one that we
verified for that particular day. So yeah, I mean that's not too bad, right?
No, it isn't. No, for the CFS, you're right.
Yeah.
You bias correct this, and basically you've got what verified.
Yeah, you're in the ballpark right there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a definite ballpark play. Sure, as I like to call the 757, also known as Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, Virginia. It was a little too cold there on that forecast, but
right.
At least it was fading to the southeast. Florida. Down into Tejas was on the cooler side, so you got a good call there.
And there's the EC, which was beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I wish it would verify that in Houston.
Oh yeah, right. A little too warm. But you take a blend. This is a case where you take a blend of the
and you're in the ballpark.
The EC, right? Yeah, you got it.
You're definitely in the ballpark. Mm-hmm. So it comes back to that. From the context of being on that day, the 28th, and walking into the 29th, and knowing what occurred previous to that on, the forecasts themselves, like the shorter range, let's call it 6 through 15 day window from the 24th, 23rd, 24th time frame, and then walking on the 28th going, oh my goodness, really? We just lost all that demand? Wow. Okay.
Right.
And, it just, the model's really corrected towards just absolutely getting rid of all cold in Canada at that time. And that really set the plate for just overall awareness, like it's going to be a grind to get cold back into the U.S. And that's what would have been alluded to on those 16 to 20/16 to 30 day forecast there.
Well, by the way, I'm looking at this too. And again, I think, certainly the surface pattern, what Greg said, for sure. But it's interesting looking at the upper level pattern. Let me double check my math here, but I'm looking over Greenland. Yeah. The CFS
had too low of heights there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
well, it blew, you go back to it. You see how it blew up Europe. Like it got Europe wrong.
Yeah. So it's funny. I mean, the North Atlantic, I mean, right?
-1.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's funny how it's about perspective too, right? Like it would be interesting to, and I think Radiant probably has this on the website where you could look at the hemispheric correlation. But looking at the hemispheric correlation, it could be whether it's good or bad. You really have to look at this more continental, right? You look at this Atlantic over to Europe, and you're like, oh my God, and it was devastating, right? Like in terms of the forecast. You look at this across North America and the Eastern Pacific, and
it's a winner.
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And this was a case where sometimes the North Atlantic has a big influence on our forecast or on our outcome. This time, the CFS completely blew it, but it still had it's from a temperature perspective, it still did okay. So go figure. At least for the United States. Yeah, interesting. Now, on the other hand, again, kudos, I guess, somewhat to the EC, which it didn't capture the split in the sort of ridging across Canada to Greenland, but at least it had a better idea that there was going to be more generous above normal heights from Canada over to Greenland. So again, let's look at verification. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, back of the envelope, this is just my subjective opinion, but the correlation, hemispheric correlation, or from North
Yeah,
America
the
to
anomaly
Europe,
correlation is
yeah,
pretty
anomaly
decent.
correlation was better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay. I don't know. What do you think after hearing all that, Michael? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the trough kind of screwing up the pattern. No cold air in Canada. That makes sense. Usually I just kind of expect it to be cold air up there. But I guess I think, was it all in Siberia? I think I was seeing some -50s over there. But as for the if I had to, just looking at the 500 millibars, if I had to give a winner as to which model did better, I think I'd give it to the Euro every time, even though it's might have missed some things. Overall, spatially, it just looked better and much closer to um, the actual, like, what the actual verification.
Yeah.
And that this time that seems to be reflected, even though it still was kind of off, by 18. Um, so maybe we're seeing that switch between the Euro and the CFS. Don't think the Euro beat the CFS last week, but we could be seeing that midwinter switch that I think Phil alluded to happened sometime last year. So who knows? That might be
Yeah.
worth watching.
And I think where Michael's going with this is the fact that if you look at our, mind you, this only takes into account one forecast per week. So there's 13 forecasts since the start of the heating season. And this is still surprising that the CFS in our metrics, including this past week where the EC did better, but the CFS is still on top by a little bit of a margin. And even directional correctness, right? Just be on the right side of 30-year normal. No, actually, this say, okay, I was going to say it's slightly better. They're both at 92.3. So directionally correct, they've been the same, but overall the CFS still has a slight edge in overall performance, which is interesting. Any I don't know, any thoughts on that one, Greg? Does that surprise you, or is that consistent with kind of what you've been witnessing?
I mean, the CFS just whips around all the time. I'm just like, whatever. It's model guidance, I guess because you're only tacking it on Tuesdays. That's when you yeah. It's spitting out guidance left and right, for the entire week. So I get to see its behavior for the entire week, which is a lot of eye rolling half the time.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like what you're saying is
you might be Tuesday's a great day for the CFS. Let's just say that much.
It could just be luck. Yeah. And certainly, if past history is any indication, now I just clicked on looking at our entire history, which in some cases is over 100 forecasts. If we look at like directionally correct, which is this column which says directionally correct. Sorry. If we compare the EC to CFS, I think it's a pretty stark difference. Let's see, where's the EC? It's too many things here.
Yeah, it keeps going down, right? Go to the bottom. Go to the
yeah. No, well, yeah. The EC is 62%, and the CFS is 48. So the CFS is slightly below flipping a coin each time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, there you have it. All right. Let's see. Anything else? I do. Is there anything? I don't know. Maybe throw this back to Greg too. Is there? I mean, I don't know. If let's just look at this. So this is since about December 1st that the AO shifted negative, and there's a question here. But let me pull up the. Let's look back since November or December 1st, right? I think I have to go back to 2020, right? All right. Let's just look at this. All right. There's your negative AO, right? I guess. I mean, Greg, is there if I don't know what, I guess there's a couple different questions here, but La Nina, if I told you, hey, the first 45 days going to be, moderate to strong La Nina, and the AO is generally going to be negative since December 1st. Is this consistent with that, or is this more on a that's not the center line kind of analog to those kinds of pattern drivers?
I don't think it's going to be on the center line. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a flavor difference with this one this year.
Okay.
And there was always talk within the market, and I'll speak to that context, that December was going to be the cooler of the months of Dec, Jan, and Feb. And there was always an opportunity for us to perhaps get cooler across the eastern third of the U.S. And there was, more of a bias to having some warmth in the west. So you get a little bit of that flavor there, in terms of the height anomalies and, approaching somewhat of that. But I think the bigger shock was just the Pacific just not allowing for cold air buildup into Canada. For the most part, I think there, mid-December we had some flirtation, right, with some cold air going through Canada that came across and spilled into portions of the central and eastern U.S. But behind some storm system activity. But yeah, it just underperformed expectations there from a La Nina kind of analog lens that was put forth within the market.
Okay, yeah, and I mean, it's now that I think about it too, I was looking, I did like a quick like spatial correlation actually, like looking at like this pattern versus like the top 10 strongest La Ninas, and from a 500 correlation, 500 millibar correlation, it seemed to be really weak. Is that kind of consistent with what? Does that surprise you, or is that consistent with your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of consistent to what we've seen play out so far. Yeah.
Is there? I mean, and I know you can't tell us all your secrets, so feel free to take a pass on this. But based on the fact, so let's just go with that, right? So we've had this from a sea surface standpoint, right? The La Nina is what, moderate to strong, or even strong, something like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, at times it was trying to broach that strong level there. I would say it would be more moderate, would probably be the consensus viewpoint.
Okay, so let's call it moderate La Nina, moderate to strong La Nina from a SST. But from a hemispheric, right, we haven't seen that kind of coupling, it sounds like, so far. Does that tell us anything about, I don't know, February, for example, the fact that we haven't seen that coupling, or, based on your experience here, just because you haven't seen that coupling doesn't mean it can't happen?
I think it could be the latter. It's not. I mean, it's correlations for the most part, right? They're not a 0.1, like they're not 1.0 correlations, and so
right.
I'm always willing to entertain the differences that can occur, and that's just my mental mind frame from doing this for too many years.
Right. Okay. So I mean, I guess that's helpful too. I think that's helpful, Michael. You tell me, but I think what I'm hearing from Greg, and I would say the same thing. I mean, in my opinion, it's probably worth what you paid for it. But if you had told me 2 months ago, all right, Dave, I mean, and let's look at the surface here real quick. Switch it to surface temperatures. If you told me, Dave, we're going to have a moderate to strong La Nina in terms of SSTs, and the AO is going to be basically negative from December 1st forward. Do you think the national HDD would I predicted this pattern slash HDD kind of ranking where we're at, which is warmer than normal? No, I don't think this would have been my center line view.
Yeah, without a doubt. If you're just using those metrics, without a doubt. You see our friends in Kazakhstan and Mongolia got the hookups this year.
Yeah, now on the
and China.
side,
I mean, it definitely got really extremely cold out there. I mean, they had issues, in fact, with ports out there where ice was. I forget the name of the city that's not too far away from Beijing. There were again issues with ships going in there because of ice on the sea. So
yeah, that's a good.
They got the hookups out there.
And Greg, okay, I promise this is the last question. Again, we always give you one pass per meeting that you
One
don't. After that, you have to answer everything. No. Okay.
Yeah. Go for it. I was about to say. I was about to, say my Fifth Amendment. I'm afforded the rights of my Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
Go for it.
By the way, this question also is for Michael too. I mean, this is a question for anyone, right? I mean, no one has a perfect answer. But okay, I mean, obviously the atmosphere in the ocean is complicated. It isn't just one or two metrics, and certainly we know that from this year and in other years too. It's La Nina and AO don't always give you the expected answer. So, I mean, what other pattern drivers have been responsible for getting us to this point? Like, are there other subseasonal / climate signals like an AMO or QBO or whatever O that you think has played a significant role in explaining this? Or is it just one of those things where you just say, you know what, you just throw up your hands and say, I just don't have the answer. And I'll say that, like, when I think about this is just my opinion, it's not necessarily Greg or Michael's. When I look back at like 2013 and 14 and all the cold and the reoccurring ridging that occurred in the Gulf of Alaska, I feel like I still haven't heard a great explanation about how 2 months before that season you would have predicted a persistence like what we saw. I still feel like if that darn pattern happened again, I would probably be caught by surprise because there were, in my opinion, I still don't feel like there are just completely telltale signs that say, oh my goodness, 2013-14 is going to happen again. But that said, anyone have thoughts on what's going on here that's pushing around the La Nina and AO?
Well, I mean, we saw that huge trough going from, what was it, like Russia all the way down to down through Alaska. Yeah, stretching all the way from what looks like Mongolia, maybe you could argue even further west than that, all the way through to, all the way down through Alaska. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of, if there's even a teleconnection that would show that or what, but I think that's our culprit, or whatever caused that is our culprit. And as to what that might be, um, you could argue maybe the strat warming did that in some way. I'm not too familiar with how that affects um, the mid levels and such, but I think there might have also been. Might have to go back for this because I'm not 100% sure, but I think there used to be a pretty decently sized ridge in, I think that's Siberia, sometime before the strat warming, but I could be misremembering that as a 10 millibar heights pattern rather than a 500 millibar. So don't take that at face value. But my 2 cents is that whatever caused that trough would be your culprit, or maybe the trough itself. Would be my 2 cents.
And is there anything there, Michael? Put you on the spot. Is there something about it that you would that are you suggesting that if I had, again, 2 months ago, if I had said, hey Michael, you've got the La Nina, you've got the AO, and you've got that trough that you just indicated, that you may have shifted your forecast to look like this? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, see, if I had known that there was going to, yeah, so basically if I'd known that there would be a trough basically siphoning or preventing cold air buildup in Canada and essentially preventing any true Arctic air masses from invading the US, that would have influenced my, I can't say 2 months ago that, I've never done a 2-month forecast, or even a month forecast for that matter. But if you told me that that trough is still there in on Tuesday when we make our next forecast, and it's forecast to still be there for that verification period, then I'm going to be hesitant to go gung-ho on cold, even if the signals on the teleconnections and the models seem to be indicating colder, would be my answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would just apply a fade. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Greg, anything you want to add to that?
I'm going to use what is afforded to me in the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution.
That means you're guilty. No. Okay. All right. No, that's fair. That's fair. You've already provided a lot. So, all right. Well, we can shift over to the forecast, I guess. I guess we need to talk about that, right? A little bit. And Greg, you were kind of talking about this too. And I no names. You don't have to. Your forecast, and you don't have to talk about any particular market group. But just in general, the market consensus. Would you say that over the past couple of weeks, the market had tilted cold in part because of the strat warming and was surprised by things coming in warmer, or would you say that it was like there were some forecasts that were warm, some forecasts that were cold? It was kind of a mixed bag.
Well, I mean, the strat warming definitely had an influence into the market to provide some risk since the last time we spoke, the front half of this month, with the idea that there could be, cold and threatening cold, and the models did definitely show at times, some substantial cold. And shoot, you can always spot the GFS from time to time. And actually, even the Euro's been a victim of this in terms of bringing some decent cold air masses nearby the U.S. and clipping. So yeah, there's been a lot of attribution to the stratosphere, allowing for it. But then what has come, at least for the last week or so, is once again the ugliness of the Pacific perhaps punching in and starting to hold it up somewhat.
Yeah.
And kind of just not allowing for as much cooling to come through. And there's still threats for Arctic air, perhaps invading our friends out there into Western Canada. If you have friends out there, I'm just saying that. My bad.
A lot of friends.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's out there, but yeah, there was definitely attribution with the polar vortex, the stratospheric polar vortex warming, saying, hey, here comes definite cold, and there was a lot of nervousness with that, without a doubt, into the market. And yeah, so it's just been peeled back here somewhat over the past week or so.
Okay. All right. I just thought, it would be helpful just to have that perspective. And and I meant to mention it, but also kudos to industry number one. That's Maxar. They had a good forecast there from what we were just looking at. I think they were slightly better than the ECMWF, so certainly nailed it. So this is today's, or the most recent forecast board. This is from earlier this week. And I guess I can just go first because I want to embarrass myself, it appears.
Excellent. Good deal.
Yeah. Here's my forecast map.
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see I'm one of the colder forecasts here. And I was 150, and slightly colder than the 30-year. And so I'll tell you my rationale, and you could read it, of course, online. But so this is the thing about it. It's down here. I can't avoid this forecast. Sometimes that's a good thing, and oftentimes for me it's a bad thing. Like it looks like this one, but we'll see how this verifies. But obviously it's not looking good right now. But my rationale. I had my standard formula, which you can see here. I also added a +5 fudge factor. The reason I added the +5 fudge factor is my thought was, so I saw, obviously, with the strat warming, this was an experiential view. And again, with all the caveats that it does not look like it's working out. But my thought was, I felt like I've seen a number of times with a strat warming and then the following response over several weeks, that you can sometimes get fooled into getting periods where you do get those warm periods, right? And that just because you get a warm period for a synoptic period, like a 5, maybe up to 10 days, that doesn't mean that necessarily that is the consistent pattern. And so I felt like, because we had the stratospheric warming, and things like that, I should bake that in. The idea being also that some of those effects, this was also part of my thought process, that that the models, numerical guidance today, still does not fully resolve those signals well, and that if we're missing it, it would be missing part of it to the, to the colder side potentially and stuff like that. So I try to account for those kinds of things, and that was why I had the fudge factor on Tuesday, the way you see it here. And that was it. And that, you could see my my map too. I had the warmer than normal out west, and then kind of fading to colder than normal in the eastern parts of the country. Any questions? If there's no questions, then I could turn it over to Michael. I think, Michael, did you publish a forecast here?
I did not.
Okay.
Forgot to that day. I did take a look though, so I can give my 2 cents.
Sure.
Sound like there's any questions for you, Dave. So I'll just go ahead and give my 2 cents here. So it looks like there'll be a little bit of looking at the teleconnections. Looks like a little bit of a reversal. Looks like the AO wants to trend back towards positive. I'm not sure if that'll happen or not, but that's what it currently shows. Same with the NAO, and the PNA is supposed to, I think, stay negative. So to me, that's a warmer pattern, staying away from, just off the basis of that. And, having heard this stuff about the trough, so I'm a little bit biased here as well. And it looks like it's going to be staying there. I would probably have been somewhere in the 130 to 140 range. Probably be willing to even say 135 to 142-ish range, somewhere in there. Would probably have been my forecast with, an average spread, but a tilt towards the warmer side in if you pushed me on the spread, if that makes sense. If you remember, we used to, in our on our more formal ones, we would do it that way. So
yeah, I wasn't going to hold you to it since you didn't have a forecast, but yeah, next time we'll do it. Okay. And I think we can also look at some of the market folks here. Matt Rogers came in at 141.
Can you click on his forecast map? I just want to see.
Oh yeah.
I'm aware of what CWG does. So okay, yeah.
There's Matt.
It's a little disappointing to see all this warmth. I was hoping for some snow this year.
Hey, well, we might get some here on the East Coast. There's Max R's 135. Dave Darkangelo 134. Let's see what his map looked like. Well, that's interesting. He may have done the wrong map. He may have, reversed it by accident. I assume he meant warmer than normal across the middle. Who else do we have? Matt Lanza's looking good right now. Matt's done pretty well. Let's see what Matt's got. Oh yeah, there you go. Matt went warm everywhere, which is looking pretty good. If I'm not,
with the exception of the left coast. I mean, come on.
No.
Can't hate against the West Coast.
And actually, Paul Roundy snuck in there too.
Ooh.
Yeah, look at 120 for Paul Roundy. Yeah, he's gone all in. Let's see what he said. Eastern Ridge expected, Pacific MJO phases, and so forcing. And let's see his map. Yeah, warm east. So looks like I am alone. Well, except Josh Herman. We've got him, although his it didn't look that cold. So, Gray, let me ask you. We could unless there's more stuff, we can all start our happy hour here a few minutes early, or at least I can. But what do you? And again, you can take a pass on this one too, I guess. But well, I guess 2 questions. You can't take a pass on the first one.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Was this considered like a major southern stratospheric warming?
Yeah, without a doubt, it was.
Okay. It was.
And it was a split too. So I
Okay.
mean, this is one where this is going to be studied, and it did its job. I mean, going back to like that 28th and 29th time frame, we were on the cusp of getting verification of the split and warming going on, because it was like scheduled for, I think, Jan 3rd, 4th, and 5th time frame. So getting already into the 6 to 10 day, it was just like, all right, this is happening, folks. This is happening. So definitely an air of excitement. But then, we come in on that 28th and 29th, and it's just like, oh, really? It found a way not to bring cold in? Maybe it's just going to be a grind, but we knew that threat was still out there, at least in the market. The threat was there. It's just that the first 2 weeks of that 28th/29th of December forecast really got peeled back. So, but pretty much everyone was accounting on and thinking that there was going to be a sun stratospheric warming in the split vortex, and I would say that verified.
Okay, and when did the warming occur approximately? When did it officially meet that status?
I think it had, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was, right around that. I think January 4th-ish time frame, right around there.
4th. So
Yeah.
like 2 weeks ago.
Because it's like the last time you did this discussion on a Friday, you had the name is escaping me. Was it Professor Lopez, right? Or
yeah, Professor Lang, right? Yeah.
Oh, Lang, sorry, I apologize. She was on here,
Right.
being a stratospheric guru, and they were talking about the possible implications on it. Once again, I apologize for messing up the name, but and that was even a week before those forecasts were made, for particularly. So, it was roughly around that date where the modeling was coming into play, and it was January 4th or so, I think. Just I'll try to see if I can get verification on that, pulling up some stuff.
Yeah, okay. And I guess I was just where I was going with that too is like, have we seen I guess is looking at the map, right? The AO was obviously already negative before this occurred, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did it, do you think it had a meaningful impact, or is having a meaningful impact on the AO, or is this just continuity?
Good question.
Like persistence, I guess. Like,
I will exercise my rights afforded to me through the United States.
Fair enough. That's
I mean, I don't have a real answer for it. I mean, I could see the argument. I could see the argument where that could be a persistence continuity play in terms of having this negative AO signal being persist further out into time, and it just happened to have the stratospheric vortex break up to kind of continue to push it out. Also, I could see others perhaps saying like the orientation exactly of where the blocking is, and so far the influence into the 500 millibar pattern occurred. But I can see kind of both sides of the argument. I just don't have a good answer for it at this moment.
That's fair. And I guess my other thought is, it's just, obviously it looks like the warming has pulled back, but and it's just my 2 cents. But like, the research I've always seen has been like, there's a lag of 2 to 6 weeks or this and that, and it can last for quite a while. And really, we're just hitting that 2-week period now and such. So I guess part of me, on one hand, wonders, could there still be a surprise embedded within the guidance, even though it doesn't really show it now much, but could there be a surprise where there's still more of an influence? On the other hand, the other sort of rule of thumb, and I think it's a little more than rule of thumb that I've read is, and I think I don't want to put words in her mouth, but Professor Lang may have even said something similar to this, that there's a relationship between the length of the warming and the length of duration of impact on the troposphere, right? Which I think makes some intuitive sense. So if the the warming is starting to kind of break down somewhat, then maybe the length duration of impact on the troposphere is also not going to be that long, and so that maybe this is the best that as good as it gets, so to speak, and that for whatever reason, some of the reasons we discussed today, that you're not going to have that sort of maybe typical response that you might expect, at least over our side of the hemisphere. Maybe to be continued. Any other, before we let everyone go here, any other thoughts on today's forecast or anything? No? You guys want to leave it there? All right, we get out of school 10 minutes early. All right, well, Greg, thanks so much for participating here.
Not a problem. Once again, I'll just have to remember names more properly, but that's just my fault.
All right, well, I hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you guys next week or sometime soon, I hope.
Yep, you too.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye.